you start getting into fitness, because you think you're getting into it for bigger muscles, for abs, for losing weight, but then all of a sudden you're controlling some aspect of your life and your vitality is improving, and then everything else starts to improve.
It's not enough to be self-motivated for your own desires. I think when you view life through the lens of other people will be left high and dry if I'm not able to be my best self, that's kind of more of a lasting, meaningful why.
You have to be strong, capable, resilient. You have to be reactive and able to manage physical challenges in the real world. And what we do in the gym is a proxy for that.
So you're in Australia, Tasmania, and you are doing bushcraft. You've got kids. You're coaching. Coaching is a primary gig, right?
Yes. Yeah. I primarily work in the fitness industry, coaching people online and managing personal trainers at a local chain gym.
What was the catalyst for the fitness and coaching kind of being the main thing for you?
I've been doing it since like 2011, 12. I've just been in that space and coaching or teaching. Like I spent a lot of time teaching massage and the personal training courses. Been doing that basically my entire adult life. You know, I started off, my fitness stuff started off with MMA, mixed martial arts in Minnesota, and then pursued that as I moved across the world, and started, I think it was 2009. I was helping my coach run like adult beginners MMA and kids MMA classes. And then it wasn't until like 2011, I think, I got my massage qualifications. 2012, started working in fitness, and I've just been working with people and coaching. Did a lot of boxing coaching for a while there too, and it's what I do. It's what I've done basically my entire adult life, and it's just been one evolution of that after another. You know, going from primarily combat sports to working in, you know, general gyms to transitioning everything to an online platform. It's like all my coaching these days is online.
Yeah.
And then I help personal trainers run their businesses too as part of a larger corporate gym structure here as well.
Nice. You have both your boys in MMA?
Yeah, well, my oldest is in jiu-jitsu. He's 5. He started when he was 4. So he's only, you know, almost a year and a half in.
Nice. I've been wanting to do that. There's like, so my 3-year-old, they got a 3 to 5 year age group class not far from me. Well, kind of far from me driving wise, but I want to get him involved in that because I feel like it'd be a perfect outlet for him to, you know, learn teamwork, learn the skills involved, but just like let him expend a bunch of energy and let people, you know, tear him up on the mat.
You're always looking for that.
Yeah. So that will be probably something that we get him enrolled in soon. Cause I feel like something like that, giving a kid a vehicle to develop self-confidence, but also be humble in some team building aspect is like one of the best things you could do for him.
It's great. I don't think my kid's learned the humble part yet. He still runs around telling everyone how awesome he is and thinking he's half Jedi, half warrior knight. We read a lot of mythology and you know, epic stories and stuff, so that just gets ingrained. And yeah, the humble thing might come with time, hopefully. Yeah, my kid's not humble yet either. I'm hoping if somebody like puts him in a headlock and chokes him out, maybe he'll be humble. Yeah, that happens to my kid all the time. He does not care. He's just like, nah, fine. Let's go again. Let's do something else. I'm going to run around in circles. There's like just no stopping him when it comes to like constant forward motion. I think it's a inherited trait. Like, I look at myself as a kid, my siblings are just like, go, 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 go.
Warrior mentality, man. It's good. So how do you kind of have the passion of the outdoors, the bushcraft in tandem with fitness nutrition? Because I grew up out in the woods. I'm hunting, I'm camping, I'm doing all that stuff. I love fitness nutrition. I compete as a bodybuilder, and I'm always blending that. And definitely the more fit that I am, the better I can go pursue game out west in the mountains, especially.
100%.
Like, how do you kind of structure your time to get all of that? Because a lot of people, like for me, when I'm out in the woods for a week or two extended hunting trip, like I don't have a gym more often than not, which is unfortunate, but like that is the gym.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, there's a big, more modern fitness push in like backcountry hunting. I mean, you know, you got your Cam Hanes and Joe Rogans and everything in between when it comes to like, hey, you need to be super fit so you can backpack out elk. So there's more of that coming into the sort of modern understanding of backcountry hunting. That's not such a big thing here in Australia, but you know, it's not. I don't know. For me, it makes sense because it's like you said, to do that, to be outside. And so my background's primarily through backpacking. I worked as a wilderness guide here in Tasmania for a few years as well when I first got here. My avenue has always been sort of the backpacking thing, and so I worked with backpackers. I worked with a guiding company to help backpackers and guides be fit and healthy and avoid injury, because that's a really big career-ending thing for wilderness guides. And so that all kind of made sense to me. So I did a research project on specifically backpacking, rucking, you know, military-style backpack training as part of my postgraduate in strength and conditioning. And it just is like, I don't know what it is. It seems like there's like 6 people in the world who actually look at it this way, but I'm like, this whole being outside, being self-reliant, living with just a backpack and having to move across country, like that's a hugely athletic endeavor. And no one thinks about it that way. And it just always kind of made sense. It's like, if you want to be out there, if you want to be capable and successful and injury free, you need to be looking after yourself. Now that I have young kids, I do a lot less backpacking, basically zero backpacking. I do more outdoor, like day hiking, family camping type stuff. And so the physical demands are less, but it's still kind of the same ethos, the same idea of, if I want to get the most out of being out here, I need to be physically capable. And now I have little people and a wife that rely on my physical capacity for simple things like carrying the kids when we go on a hike, or, you know, unpacking everything from the top of the car with our giant 10-person tents and things like that. Like, that all takes physical capacity. And so the framework's changed a bit. My business, my online coaching business, is Strong for Life online coaching. And the whole idea is to help people get capable for that, for whatever adventures you want to undertake in life. And so it's a lot of people in similar situations, parents and business owners who just need to be more physically capable for the things they want to do in life. But that always seemed like a natural thing to me. If I want more out of life, I have to be physically capable. If I want to be more comfortable outside, backpacking, family camping, hauling stuff around, splitting wood, building shelters, dragging logs around, that takes physical capacity. And like you said, like, out there can be the gym. But when you live in, you know, suburbia, and you work in an office most of the time or at a desk, well, you're not getting all the time to use the out there for your fitness. You have to have your fitness and bring it out there with you. So yeah, it always seemed like a natural counterpart to being active outside to me was maintaining physical capacity to get more out of that. So it's less exhausting. It's less potentially injurious.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. It's interesting. I was hunting this weekend, actually. I went to my family farm, disconnected. There's no internet down there, and I don't get to go down there near as often as I'd like, but I always think more creatively when
Awesome.
I do that. And like I'm in the bodybuilding space, so I'm teaching people how to use a ketogenic diet for natural bodybuilding, which seems ultra niche, which it totally is. But bodybuilding is like when you distill that down to its core essence, it's literally putting an emphasis on the quality of the food you eat and exercise and movement of the body. Like, that is the definition of bodybuilding. Now, whether you decide to compete with it on stage is a totally different thing. But everybody in their right mind should think of themselves as a bodybuilder to some extent. Because when you are impaired in your health, everything else is so much harder. I mean, you know, rewind 500 years and everybody was hiking through the mountains because that was just part of the day. You know, like, they had to go find their food, they had to go hunt, they had to go get water, they had to go do whatever they had to do. Now we don't have that necessity. I mean, we've got DoorDash and Uber Eats and Netflix.
Yeah.
But it's like everything would level up if people had a physically capable body. And I don't try to shame people or judge people, but like it hurts me to see them, you know, practically incapable of carrying groceries to their car and up the flight of
Yes.
stairs to their refrigerator. Like, it's like life is so much more than that. And the moment people make that shift, everything else improves. Like, their relationships improve, their ability to make money
Yes.
and provide improves, their ability to improve on their own skill sets and passions improves. Like, we're all born in a state of health, barring any genetic mutations or things like that. It is like our baseline responsibility to maintain and build upon that health. But most people just piss it away.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing I end up talking to a lot of longer term clients about, and I try to convince other people of too, is that this is sort of the secret of when you start getting into fitness, is you think you're getting into it for bigger muscles, for abs, for losing weight, but then all of a sudden you're controlling some aspect of your life and your vitality is improving, and then everything else starts to improve. Like you said, like every aspect, your relationships, how you perform at work, your sense of well-being, everything starts getting better once you start taking charge of your health and your fitness.
Yeah, and I feel like it's interesting, man, because I had this epiphany this weekend when I was out in the woods. But it's like, our purpose in life it should be bigger than ourselves. Like, we shouldn't be just a bunch of self-absorbed assholes that are selfish with our time. Like, we should live to serve in some capacity. And whether that's serving your friends, family, loved ones, close-knit community, serving your God, whatever the case may be, like, we have a calling bigger than ourselves. So having incapable bodies, being a leech on society and not being self-sufficient is like the most disrespectful thing that anybody can do with their time on this earth, because it hinders their ability to serve to the best of their capacity.
Yeah, and that comes along with being a member of your community, but also of families. As a dad in particular, there is a great responsibility to be capable for the people that you're responsible for, and that extends out, I think, into the community, at large, and ultimately into bigger circles of community, like states, cities, nation, that kind of thing. Like, ultimately, like, we do have a responsibility for the space and the people around us. It's kind of like it kind of bleeds into the ideas like common spaces. Should we be taking care of them? Should they look like garbage, or should they be nice? It's all part of that, I think, greater need of community and maintaining that.
Totally agree. And for you and I, who've just live and breathe this our whole life, like, it's common sense. It's like, well, duh, everything would be better if we're healthy. Like, it makes perfect sense. I feel like everybody intuitively and inherently knows that. Why do you think we find ourselves, I don't know what Australia is like. I mean, the US is like more than 51% are obese. I think Australia is pretty close to the US in that stat. Where do people totally miss the boat on this? Is it just sheer laziness, or what do you think the issue is?
Man, that is a rabbit hole. The obesity rate's wild. I did a TEDx talk last year framed around the fact that the world has a greater problem with obesity now in terms of numbers than hunger. Like, it's a greater health risk across the world. Where do we fail? I think it's a lack of sense of duty and responsibility. I think that there's a whole lot of people that are raised to think that it's somebody else's responsibility to look after them, and that they shouldn't have to take care of themselves, let alone anyone else. That's probably a failure of social structures and what we believe it means to be part of a community, which also comes down to parenting. And I think that there's been, I mean, if we're going back, it's probably going back to either the boomers or the hippies, and the sort of eschewing of responsibility, and breaking of social contracts and social ties and our responsibility for others. Because ultimately, like, if we have responsibility for other people, or community, we have a responsibility for ourselves. We can't do that role if we are not capable. And I think that changed a lot probably in the last 100 years, because people don't feel like anybody's necessarily relying on them, or they should have to have people relying on them.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's not enough to be self-motivated for your own desires, because people get lazy if it's only them that's suffering. But I think when you view life through the lens of other people will be left high and dry if I'm not able to be my best self, that's kind of more of a lasting, meaningful why. And people always throw around, hey, you got to have a strong enough why. But that's so vague and abstract for the masses. Like, you got to have something more tangible than that to grasp hold of. So when you look at it, I mean, you work with clients, I work with clients, that we kind of see what their motivating factor is. Like, what is going to actually make the tide shift on a societal level? Like, is it going to have to be this implosion point at which I don't even know what kind of cataclysmic issue would happen there for that to be necessary, but like, this trend cannot be maintained, basically.
No, it's self-destructive. It's a trend of failing communities. Unfortunately, there has to be some sort of paradigm shift, something that causes that, and that could be cataclysm, it could be societal, it could be a return to an understanding that we have responsibilities. Like, I mean, it's there's a political element. Was it? God, I'm so bad with my political history, but JFK, ask not what you can do, what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Like, that mentality of, I have a responsibility. How can I make this world better? How can I make the place I live? And again, those concentric rings coming outward of, self, family, community, city, state, etc. It's like, how do I make the space I'm involved in better? What can I do to improve? Something has to reorient that focus so that it's like, yeah, you have a responsibility. And funny thing, it comes back to fitness and looking after yourself. And it's like, there's this pathway from being the victim in your own life and the victim of your own choices to taking charge of something, seeing what you're capable of, watching your body and your mind transform through this process, to all of a sudden taking more responsibility in your life. There's this pipeline between going to the gym and being more capable, and then also looking at how you have more responsibility in your communities.
Mm-hmm. And if you're healthy, like, if that baseline responsibility is met, there's so many character traits and values that bubble up from that just as a default. Like, if you're healthy, you're going to, by definition, have better habits, better routines, more self-discipline, better structure, be more consistent. Like, all of that transcends the act of simply being healthy and bleeds into all facets of life. So I'm 100% in complete agreement with you. And I feel like so much of it stems back. Like, when I have podcasts and we're like all trying to solve the world's problems, sit around a campfire and, save the world. Like, so much of it always comes back to parenting. And I feel like the parenting aspect is paramount. That's crucial. So I've been asking myself these questions now that I have, 2 sons as well. And at 3 years old, it's kind of hard to reason with a 3-year-old. Working on it, but it's challenging.
A little bit. It's a little bit tough.
But I'm excited to be able to just instill this, self-sufficient but social responsibility in both of them. And like, that has to come early on, man. That has to come from within the home, because once they're out in the world, like, if they've already got bad habits in place, correcting that course is so much harder than instilling it from the get-go.
Yeah, it is. And this kind of comes back to the common excuse of, the things that happened in my childhood are the reason I am today. But as adults, even if we don't have that, we're responsible for our actions. It doesn't matter really what our background is. Ideally, we want a better setup. We want our kids to have a better setup than we had, and to have the best setup we can give them for life. But ultimately, if you're an adult out there listening, thinking, yeah, that's what happened to me, and no one instilled these values, it's like, well, you're aware of it now, and now you have a responsibility for your own actions. So you can change. You can change how you behave.
100%, man. What is the primary demographic of people that you're working with?
I work primarily with busy parents and professionals. So generally, it's probably more skewing towards women right now, because I work with a lot of people who train at home, and so I get a lot of moms who train at home around kids. So it's probably like 60-40 women to men, and it's 30, mid to late 30s up towards 60. A lot of people training from home. primarily people newer to the gym. Like my in-person coaching stuff has primarily been around Gen Pop, with a handful of athletes on the margins. But since moving everything to online, it's really helped reach a lot of people who would otherwise not even step into a gym. So I get a lot of newbies, a lot of people trying to do what they can from home. And I really like that. I do a lot of my own training here in my garage or my office. And I like trying to figure things out with minimal equipment, even though I'm, also work in gyms. I still do most of my training in my garage. And it's really, really fun to work with those people who are just like, I've got like 2 bands and an adjustable dumbbell set in my living room. What can I do? It's like, oh, we can do so much.
Yeah, I mean, you could do so much with the basics. Like I've got my own gym here in my facility, and I've just got the basics. Like I've got a cable set up, but I mean, for the first 2 or 3 years of my bodybuilding career, it was just adjustable dumbbells, and then I eventually upgraded to an incline bench. But like, that is all you
That's
need.
all you need.
It's all you need. And people look for excuses. They look for the best workout split or the fancy new hip abductor machine, but like not necessary at all. What'd your wife do after having the second kid as far as training is concerned? Because we just had that, ours is 3 months and 3 years now. So like, man, getting her training dialed in with the chaos in the house that's been a challenge.
Yeah, it's not easy. So my wife, she runs a bush play and like nature play business. So she runs play groups for young kids and parents. They come out into the bush and learn bush skills and are outside running around. So she's very active with that. And that kind of started when we had our first kid, because she's a teacher by trade and she wanted to do more outdoor nature play type stuff. And so she runs that. And so most of her activity is just being outside with lots of kids. So we're, 15,000, 20,000 steps a day kind of thing. Yeah, the gym stuff is just steps, man. So many steps. I mean, you're chasing kids away from snakes and shit. So like it's keeps you active, or run, trying to keep them safe around fire, because they do a lot of firework stuff. So the gym stuff is pretty sporadic. It might be like once a week going in and focusing on some squats or doing like a gym class. We have a local gym near us that also has like childcare, so she can go in and the kids will hang out in the childcare area and play and do whatever and cause chaos, and then she can go join in one of the group fitness classes or go and do her program. So that's more sporadic. Most of her fitness is based around just being outside, kind of the opposite of me. She's actually out there most days, rain or shine, and I'm not. I'm indoors. And then I do the outdoor stuff on the weekends and evenings, depending on where the sun's at. So yeah, a lot less formal, more just being out there.
That's awesome though, man. So y'all made like a outdoor play scenario for kids. So like other parents will bring their kids to just be exposed to some of these outdoor skills.
Yeah, so we call it bush play here in Australia, and it's so like younger kids bring. Parents will bring their younger kids and they stick around for a couple hours, and there'll be facilitated outdoor activities. Whether it's fire making, like we're talking like my older son has been working with the fire striker and lighting fires since he was like two or three, and so teaching like fire safety, outdoor safety stuff, fire building, simple things like roasting marshmallows and boiling water. Playing with water, making potions, building shelters, like getting them outside, because so many kids never do that. They never go outside at all. And so it's a program designed to get generally like preschool or during like school holidays, school age kids out involved with being outside, rain, hail, or shine year round.
I think that's huge, man. Like when I was a kid, my favorite, I mean, I didn't have a cell phone back then. There wasn't really phones back then, but man, I would spend hours outside just making shelters. My first big passion before fitness nutrition was Native American history. So I was out there building teepees, wigwams, making my own bows, skinning my own hides and tanning that. Like I just loved all things outdoor survival. So that was what I lived and breathed. And I mean, kids, they don't do that anymore. Even like, I mean, most kids don't have access to land close. There's also obviously lots of national parks and things like that, but I mean, if you don't live in an area with land, you got to make an initiative to get out there and find some, because that, like, so much of my upbringing is rooted on being outside. And I feel like that served me so well.
Yeah, it does. And it's kind of like the fitness thing. It serves you in so many other domains, particularly under resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just a certain resilience that comes. Kids who play sports get a lot of this too, but just like being out, being active, having to deal with just what would normally be common challenges, scrapes, bruises, cuts, moving things, interacting with the environment. Oh, it's hot. Now it's raining. Now it's windy. Like all those things build just general resilience. And that'll serve you for a lifetime.
I saw some ad pop up the other day, and it was like some app or something to improve mental acuity and reaction time. And it was like a screen, and there's like dots popping up, and you're supposed to hit the dots. And I'm like, man, that sounds so boring. But every day I go for a trail run, and I'm like running on rocks and avoiding sticks and jumping from one rock to the next. I'm like, this is the best way to improve reaction time, because if you're running through the woods and you don't want to fall off a cliff, you got to be able to react quickly.
Yep.
Like that, all these things that we're doing these days is like a hack that just came by default with what we were doing previously.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. And it's a conversation I have a lot because I've got friends that are tradies. You know, they work in trades and they're construction workers and they're carpenters and whatever. And they're like, you know, what should I do in the gym? And I'm like, bro, you spend 8 to 10 hours hauling bricks every day. What do you need to go to the gym for, except to maybe prevent some injury? You know, everything we do in the gym, aside from aesthetics, that changes the framework a bit. But everything we do in the gym about getting fit and healthy is a proxy for actually having manual labor. You know, it's like everything we used to do as humans used to be massive step count. You have to be strong, capable, resilient. You have to be reactive and able to manage physical challenges in the real world. And what we do in the gym is a proxy for that. Like if you're out there building a log cabin every day and digging trenches and farming, it's probably not the most important thing to go and sit on a treadmill and walk. You know, it's probably not the most important thing to go lift a barbell off the ground if you spend your day lifting rocks off the ground. So it's all, you know, trying to live out the requirements of our physical bodies in a way that we don't do naturally anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Aesthetics are different. But,
yeah, aesthetics are different, but like but you're 100% right. I mean, I feel like we live, it's like the quote, you know, hard times create hard men, soft times create soft men. And like, you know, back in the day, by default, there were hard times and we had hard men as a result. And now it's like we can get by without having any massive adversity placed before us. So we have to intentionally seek out these self-imposed hardships, which is the gym or the sport or in business, like being an entrepreneur and becoming self-sufficient in your own regard. Like, there's a lot of ways to seek out self-imposed hardship. But the sad thing is you don't have to do that, and you can just get by. And that is like kind of, you know, full circle to what we were saying before. Like, because you can now just get by, people do just get by. Whereas before, there was no option to just get by. Like, you're just dead and left in the dust. There was no societal safety nets built into place.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's such a funny thing. Like, we have to choose difficulty. What a strange time we live in. You know, it's like I always say we need to contextualize our lives. I have a client I've been working with for a long time, and I've trained him in person for many years. And he's an accountant. And one day, this is going back a few years, he was like, you know, the hardest thing I do every week is leg day. It's the hardest thing in my life. And I always like think about that. I was like, that's exactly what I want. You know, I want to see a news story where one of my clients has been lost in the bush for a week and they're half starved and they're shambling around. Their clothes are all torn up. And the news camera person gets there and they're like, you know, what was it like? You know, how hard was it trying to survive in the bush? And I want them to look dead in the eye of the camera and be like, you know, it was tough, but it wasn't as bad as leg day.
Yeah.
You know, I want it to be, you know, I want people to help people contextualize their lives. Like, this is the hardest thing you're doing and you're doing it by choice. Everything else becomes easy.
That's the key, man. It's all relative. Like, the hardest thing you've done is always the hardest thing you've done. And that's going to be totally perspective based for the individual. But like, if you have the luxury of choosing the hard things, which makes all the things that you don't have a choice over not seem that bad. You
Yeah.
become harder to kill, more self-sufficient, and a better asset to humanity, and your ability to serve is, 10x. And I feel like that
Yeah.
is what we should all strive for as human beings. Like, it's our responsibility to do that. Like, if you are blessed with life on this planet, your overarching goal should be to leave it a better place than you found it. And you can't do that if you're a slob.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny. When I launched my online business and moved away from in-person coaching, uh, I was trying to think of like good branding. Like, what am I going to call it? And my first thought was harder to kill coaching, because I like that concept a lot. That idea is like we do these things to be harder to kill. But then I was like, oh, what's my demographic? Who am I working with? And I kind of turned it to a more affirmative, a positive, and it became strong for life. But underneath that, it's always like, how do we make people harder to kill? Especially, like busy parents who don't have a lot of time. It's like, what can we do? What's the most time efficient way to make them harder to kill? Because their
Mm-hmm.
kids are trying to kill them. They are wearing them down.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I feel like people, there's been a big push for like longevity, especially in like the biohacking space and nutrition
Yeah.
space. And when you're like, I look at my grandparents, and it's sad to see, man, because my grandparents, like, they got caught right in the middle of when it was all the low fat craze, and like
Mm.
no gym ever, like nobody knows how to do a bicep curl in that demographic. And it's like, I just see them so frail these days. Like, they're starting to show signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. They're
Mm.
getting their keys taken away. Like, it's just a very hard thing to witness. And I've seen this gradual decline over the past 15 years for them, and there may be another 10 years remaining. And it's like, man, that right there is what I fear most and want to avoid at all costs. And the best way to hedge against that is having more of these self-imposed hardships in place on the daily.
That's right. Yeah, and our grandparents, they grew up in that era where like everybody was just working in offices too. Like my grandpa, he served in Korea, but then spent his entire life working at IBM,
Mm-hmm.
like sitting in an office, working. He did a bit of travel and stuff like that, but it's like that that generation is just stationary, sedentary. They've just spent their whole lives primarily just sitting in offices, indoors, no natural light. Like that's the generation that really got away from a lot of the things that make humans healthy.
Mm-hmm. How old are you?
I'll be 37 in January.
Okay, I turned 34 later this month, so we're pretty similar age there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that generation, I mean, we owe them so much, but at the same time, like, from their personal health standpoint, like, it's costing them dearly. And I feel like now
Yeah.
there's been this big push for health and fitness, and people are more mindful of it. But it's like, even though it's become more popular and sexy online, so to speak, there's just this. It's almost like the haves and have-nots have become more prevalent. Like, you've got the people that are totally all about it and doubling down on it, but then you've got this majority population that just still doesn't see the picture.
Yeah. And it's kind of up to guys like us to help them see the picture.
That's the goal, man. What
Yeah, for
resonates
sure.
in your marketing? Like, when you're working with these people, like, what kind of messaging are you putting out that gets them to be like, okay, that's where it's at?
Gosh. It's probably the stuff like people like to see transformations. They like to see normal, and again, my demographic is just mostly normal people. People like to see normal people that they can, resonate with and see them do awesome things. And I think the stuff that speaks to my demographic the most is just like when I share a story of, let's say, Sierra, who's been working with me for 9 months, almost a year. In her first 6 months, she started 6 months postpartum with her fourth kid. And then in those 6 months, she lost 30 pounds, training at home, focusing on just eating good food. And people look at that and they're like, oh, that's me, but in a harder situation. I've got one kid. I've got two kids. I've got access to a gym, whatever. Like, people see that and they're like, that's basically me, but they did it a little bit harder. And that kind of story, that people need to see themselves in the story. So I stay in terms of marketing, I like to show these transformations, especially the really drastic ones, the guys who lose 40 kilos, the women who lose 50 pounds, like that looks good visually, but the stories are of normal people. And so I try to stay away from the highly aesthetic big influencer thing, where everybody's jacked, tanned, and topless. It's more about telling those normal stories, and like especially with marketing, because it's primarily through social media. My brand image is lifestyle stuff. It's like, yeah, here's some stories about people that are doing awesome things, and I'm helping them get there. But it's also a bit of the bushcraft stuff and being outside. It's a bit of the family and the kids stuff, and it's really just about relating to people and saying like, hey, like you don't need to have anything special. You can just choose to live better.
Yeah.
You can train in your house. You can train in your garage. You can get a gym membership. You can be outside more. You can throw your kids around. Kids are just weights that wiggle. Like, you don't need anything fancy. You can use them. You can get out and have adventures. You don't have to watch other people just do them online. And so it's really about trying to relate to people, and a little bit of mixed education in there too, and trying to dispel some myths around fitness that come out and are sort of common these days. Sometimes I just sit around and bash functional patterns, like just, it's a mix of things.
Yeah. How do you address like nutrition, like these people coming in from general population? Like there's so much controversial stuff on nutrition online. Like how do you give them structure?
I'm not dogmatic about food. My thing is really like, we're humans are not really Ferraris. We're more like old-timey tractors. We can use a range of fuels and different qualities and still get work done. It's about what works for you and what you can stick to. I don't care if you have the perfect diet if it ruins your life. I'd rather you have an okay, pretty good diet and have a good life. So I don't like to obsess about any particular thing. I'm very focused on quantity, so portion control, and whatever you can do consistently and getting enough protein. So, some people do really well, very low fat. Some people do really well, very low carb. I try to shoot for a middle ground and focus on, are we getting enough protein? Are we not over consuming? Are you eating whole foods primarily? And can you do that consistently? So it's like, sometimes you get these meal prep guides, and it's like, you need to have a fresh, ripe mango from the equator, and then you need to have freshly hunted turkey breast, and then you need quinoa from Bolivia, and you have to source all these on a full moon, and then you have to boil them for 30. It's like you get into this stuff, and it's like, this is the perfect biohacker meal. It's like, that's silly. That's insane. Just go get whatever's down at the grocery store that you can get locally that's not going to cost you an arm and leg, and fry up some beef and veg, do a roast and some, root vegetable, whatever, like whole foods, simple, wholesome meal prep, things that aren't going to add complication to your life. Learn how to use a slow cooker. Like, this isn't gourmet stuff. This is like, I need to feed my family on a budget and keep everyone healthy. Yeah. So very much not dogmatic about any particular aspect, but trying to just have a good framework around healthy relationship to food, portion control, adequate protein, whole foods sourced locally without a lot of stress.
I can totally get behind that. Do you have most of them like tracking their intake from a portion control standpoint?
Yeah. I think tracking is a game changer for most people. There's so many, primarily women, that are so averse to weighing and measuring food. And there's a stigma around it. There's also like personal experience, and they have some like history with tracking and diets that makes them very averse to it. Guys I don't see that problem. They're typically like, yeah, just tell me what to do. I think tracking is an absolute game changer for people, and I liken it to budgeting. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you want to save up for something, you want to buy a new car, do you just never look at your paycheck and never check your accounts and just kind of hope it happens just by vibes? No. You weigh and measure that shit. You look at the numbers and you see what you need, and you base your decisions on how much is there. It's the same with food. If you're not tracking in some respect, you're just guessing. And that said, again, being non-dogmatic about diet and trying to help people figure out what works for them. Although I will say, like, weighing, measuring, tracking, getting a kitchen scale, actually looking at the macros and the calories to the best of your ability is a game changer and the most accurate way. I do think that a more proportional eating system, similar to what like precision nutrition uses, with protein portions being the size of your palm, cupped handful of carbs, fist size serving of veggies, I think that stuff also works very well for people who are less focused on specific weight loss and just general healthy eating with good relationship to food. I think that proportional eating system covers that pretty well. You still have a weighing and measuring system, but it's less digital. It's less about the numbers. It's more about the size. And for whatever reason, I actually work with a bunch of accountants, like a handful of accountants that I work with, and they love numbers. Fine, great. But a lot of the stay-at-home moms are like, I don't want to touch that. Okay, well, as long as we have a system of measuring, it will change your life and how you relate to food. That's fine. It's not going to be as accurate, but it will work for you if we can get it right.
Completely agree, man. Like I get frustrated, honestly, because, people say, hey, look, we're not bomb calorimeters. The body doesn't know what a calorie is. Let's just eat intuitively. And I'm like, yeah, that's 100% true. We're not bomb calorimeters, and, we shouldn't have to track all of this stuff. But the reason we are having to track that is because we no longer live in an environment where all of that physical activity came by default. So kind of going back to what we said previously, like, we don't live in that. That's not a reality anymore. So if you are not living in a healthy relationship with food, if you don't have physical health and well-being, and you're trying to move the needle, what can be measured can be managed. And that is the lowest hanging fruit to making meaningful change. And like there's a lot of people in like the keto carnivore space that see tremendous benefit intuitively because they remove all the processed hyperpalatable junk foods and they eat primarily fats and proteins, which is what the body's going to thrive on. And then they lose a lot of weight and everything without tracking a morsel, which is great. But then they hit a plateau or they want to take it to the next step further. They're like, oh, I shouldn't have to track. And I'm like, no, if you want to take it to the next level, you have to track. I mean, like using the budgeting example, like you would not expect to reach the next level if you're not controlling for any of the inputs, any of the variables. Like you have to manipulate that.
Yeah, 100%. And the environment thing is so important. Like I mentioned before, like I did a TEDx talk last year on how to eat like an adult. So I'm very big on like more behavior-based, intuitive relationship with food. I think that's important. It's not going to get you super jacked and tan, but it'll keep you healthy and sane. But when I do like nutrition talks in person, one thing I like to bring up is the change in environment. Why? Because people get up in arms like, oh, you're always focused on weight loss and tracking. And it's like, yeah, because it changes your life. And we're, 75% overweight in the Western world because not just because of our choices, but because of the environment that makes those choices too easy. Like you said, hyperpalatable foods, And I always go back to, it's like, we're designed to track down and hunt a mammoth and then eat that for a week and then eat nothing for a week until we find the next mammoth. Except the problem is now we have a mammoth on every street corner and it's fried in oil and covered in salt and sugar. Like everything inside of us says, just eat the stuff that tastes good. And so the environment either has to be set up for us in which we can't do that, or we have to figure out how to manage our monkey brains saying, eat that stuff because that must be good for us.
Yeah, completely agree, man. Completely agree. When you're working with people, obviously there's a spectrum of people that are over consuming, kind of like what you just described. You probably see it a lot too, but I get a lot of people that have just chronically under-eaten. They've jumped from one fad diet to the next, and they're just in a constant state of, lack of consumption, lack of nutrition. And some of them may very well not be accurate with their tracking metrics and not be accounting for what they're truly consuming. But what do you do with individuals who have just been chronically under-eating, yet the goal is still to lose weight?
Generally speaking, I always start people with a food journal. So just take pictures of everything you eat for a week. Eat and drink. Take a picture, attach it to the app. I'll take a look at it at the end of that, and we'll make some judgment calls. I see that sort of jumping from diet to diet thing in often women who came of age in the like the 80s and the 90s, when there was a lot of fad diets, and I see this, women in their 50s, 50s, 60s, where they're like, oh, I'm going to go back on the X diet because I lost 20 pounds doing that. It's like, yeah, but why did you gain it back? Because the diet only works as long as you do it. But what I find is that same pattern of feast and famine, of deprivation and binging, where a lot of these people will look like they're not eating much, because you can't gain weight without consumption. Like, weight doesn't magically appear. You have to consume at least enough carbon atoms for it to stick to your frame. And typically I've seen this with a lot of women I've worked with, they'll eat like nothing. They'll eat like 900 calories a day, just like muffins and salads all week. And then Saturday, Sunday, it's booze and pizza. And they'll consume 10,000 calories over 2 days. And all they do is work at an office all week. So they're sedentary. They come home, they watch TV, and then they massively overconsume on the weekends because it's social. They don't think about it. And then they basically eaten 2 weeks worth of food on a weekend for someone who probably only needs like 1,500 calories a day. That's usually the thing I see. And then it's addressing the facts like, hey, you're doing this because you are basically starving yourself all week. You are not nourishing yourself. You're eating cardboard and lettuce, and you're not getting enough actual sustainable, satiating nutrients during the week. And so you basically feel like you're starving, and you eat everything that is delicious and accessible on the weekend. So then we go, okay, I need you to hit these nutrient targets. I need you to get at least this much protein every day, this much per meal, and you need to have at least 3 of these a day. And that's where the proportional stuff, palm size portion of protein works very well. It's like, I need you to have 3 palm size portions of protein every day. And what happens is, when we start taking a additive, nutrient focused approach to food, they stop getting cravings. They stop looking for the things to binge on. They go, I don't really feel like eating a whole pizza. They start learning moderation because their body is actually being nourished. And I think a lot of people who overconsume regularly lack the nourishment that their body needs to say, I actually don't need to shove anything else in my guts.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. And I feel like so much of it should be shifted to the actual composition of that weight, because I do have some people that they've come from a background of not overdoing it on the weekends. They just chronically don't eat enough. So obviously their metabolism's been down-regulated, and they're losing lean tissue rapidly, but they're not losing a ton of weight, but they look less fit, less healthy, because they're losing so much muscle relative to adipose tissue. And it's like, look,
skinny fat.
Yeah. I mean, you got to like shift. And as a coach, the concept of reverse dieting and eating more food and potentially putting on some more weight in the short term is like the hardest sell as a coach. But it's like,
it really is.
But it's like, okay, clearly what you're doing is not working for you. And if you're only eating 1,000 calories a day, there's no caloric runway from which to taper going forward. So we have to do this to upregulate your metabolic rate and hormone function. And again, that is the hardest sell as a coach. But like, so many people, women especially, but men too, have just been in that trap, and they've stayed there for months, if not years. And it's like, that's total shift in mindset. Like, don't focus on the weight, focus on the composition. And then rather than just simply restrict, like, go through a tangible building phase in which you're accepting a little bit of body fat gain, as long as your lean tissue and composition, hormonal function, metabolic rate is improving drastically. Because if that happens, which it will, your ability to be responsive and losing body fat in the future is going to be so much more improved. And that's much more than just a 6-week shortcut, mentality. And people just have to have that lifelong approach towards it.
And that is a hard sell. Like you said, like, hey, listen, I know you really want to lose weight, but I need you to eat more.
Mm-hmm. I've managed it several times. Like, people kind of come to me.
It's not easy,
but it's not an easy sell by any means. But like, what's the alternative? I mean, my 3-year-old eats more than you. Like, it's tough.
And when you have kids, especially young boys, you kind of start to see some things in a different light where you're like, oh yeah, this kid eats his body weight in chicken and yogurt every day. Like that shouldn't be so hard for adults. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And people, I mean, man, people are weird. People justify the weirdest things and consider it food. Like, I feel like I'm not for food shaming, but rather than looking through life through the lens of what can I get away with, I feel like we should look through it more so what can we optimize for? And like that's not anti-alcohol and junk food, but like that shouldn't be the primary staple in your diet. And I'm right there with you too. And like you don't want to have a 100% optimized diet at the expense of your life and livelihood. I always tell people, look, I'd rather you be 90% 100% of the time than 100% 10% of the time. You know, like
yes,
as dialed in as sustainable as you can be, but then just do something that you would willingly want to do for the rest of your life.
yeah, yeah, and you know, one of the things I spoke about in my TED Talks is this idea of just good enough is good enough. Like if you're going out to eat, if you're grocery shopping and something's on sale and it's not the perfect thing, it's not the, you know, organic Bolivian quinoa, it's rice or whatever. Like just good enough is good enough. If you're doing pretty good most of the time, you're probably going to be fine. Like we don't need to try and do this, you know, what's that guy's name? Brian, whatever, like this super
Oh yeah,
biohacking, try to live
Brian
for
Johnson or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. You know, we don't have to live that way. That's not going to give us fulfillment. That's not going to help us really enjoy life. Just like we don't have to David Goggins or exercise all the time. You know, it's about just doing what you can with what you got for as long as you can. And that's the way to making sure that we have balance. You know, I'm one of those fitness guys on the internet. You know, and I do a lot of education around this, but the gym isn't my life either. Cooking all the time isn't my life either. I got a life that takes up way more time and mental energy than either of those things. But those things are part of my life and they help support the life I want with my family and my kids and outside and my other many hobbies and pursuits.
Totally agree, man. Totally agree. I'm going to end this with one random, totally off topic thing, which is when you're going on your trips, in the bush, what's in your bag? What do you have? What's in your EDC, so to speak, when you're going out into
Yep.
the Australian bush?
Yeah, it really depends. Like you've got staples. So I have a lot of backpacks. I have a particular pack that I've taken everywhere. I've got a Fjallraven pine green Kai pack, the 38 liters. And it's just like a hard wearing canvas pack. And I keep all my stuff in there all the time. So I have basic navigation, got a compass, and I keep a first aid kit with snake bite bandage. As essentials, I have basic water filtration options, usually a Catadine Be-Free filtration bottle, or tabs. I don't like tabs, so I'd rather filter water. That said,
Those
around
bottles
here,
are
like
legit, man. I went on an elk hunt trip and I was drinking
they're
green
great.
pond scum that coyotes had pissed
Yep.
in for a week, and that bottle is the way to go.
Yeah, awesome. I have a number of those with replacement filters. They last forever. I've used them everywhere from, geez, like the bush to the Himalayas. Like they're great. So I always keep one of those in a backpack, and I always keep one in the camping gear for the family too. Outside of that, I always keep something for creating sparks. So I usually have a ferro rod and striker that just lives in every backpack. I will have some emergency snacks, like trail mix type stuff, or some bars. I have basic toileting essentials, a small, lightweight aluminum trowel, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, that kind of stuff. And then there is usually a spare blade in a pack as well. I'm trying to think what's in my go bag. But I also would have an EDC pocket knife, usually an Opinel wood-handled locking blade that I've been using for a decade now, and some sort of fixed blade. I try to keep a fixed blade on the hip. I'm rocking a Condor Pterosaur as my everyday fixed blade for bush stuff. Sometimes it's a Moriniv Bushcraft Black. That one has a nice rubberized handle. Basically, a carbon steel blade with some sort of plastic or rubberized handle in a plastic sheath. So it's very low maintenance. It doesn't look as cool as some of the nice leather handcrafted knives out there with nice sheaths, but it's basically hard wearing, doesn't absorb moisture like that. That's food, water, day stuff. I don't usually carry a shelter. If it's overnight stuff, I'll carry usually a tarp, lightweight Sil Nylon Sea to Summit tarp. Works quite well, especially if I'm backpacking, because I can set it up on trekking poles or trees. And that's probably the most of it, outside of anything specific for the trip, like extra food, shelter, clothing, that kind of thing.
You have like a bunch of paracord with you?
Yeah, I carry, I'll have some paracord. I think I've been using more like woven cordage lately, mostly just because I have a lot of it and I'm trying to use it up. So there'll be some sort of rope or cord in there as well.
Nice. I like it, man. Making me wish I was back in the woods right now, dude. I love it out there.
It's the place to be.
It is the place to be, man. It's freaking therapy. Freaking therapy. Well, it's pretty cool. Your kiddos are going to be able to grow up with you putting such an emphasis on health, nutrition, and the outdoors. I feel like those right there, I mean, they're going to be a leg up on the competition. And jiu-jitsu. I mean, they're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Warriors.
That's the idea. That's the idea.
I love it, man. Well, where do people go to find out more about you and dive deeper into your world?
You can follow me on Instagram, Coach Josh Wood. Otherwise, my website is strongforlife.online. So Strong for Life Online Coaching. I keep a bunch of resources there. The website's mostly just like a library of resources. So there's a bunch of like, recipes and eating guides and basic workout plans and things like that. Old podcast episodes, all that jazz. So if you after resources, head to the website. If you're after questions, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Coach Josh Wood. Always happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Let me know when you're back in Nebraska. We do that 50-mile march every August. You have to come back for that.
Well, I'll keep that in mind.
Awesome, man. We'll definitely keep in touch. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.